Hello, boys. Hello, girls. Hello, babes. Welcome back to the Jenaya Talks Caps podcast. As always, thank you all so much for tuning in today. And we would like to invite you, if you haven't already done so, to please go ahead and subscribe to our podcast if you are enjoying your time here. Whether you are a longtime listener and one of the many people who tune into the show every single week, or whether you are brand new to our show and this is your first time listening, we appreciate each and every single one of you so much, and we would love to have you along here with us for every single episode. And so, like I said, if you do enjoy the show, please do go ahead and click on that subscribe button. We really appreciate it, and we are so glad, like I said, to have you here with us. Okay. Now that little piece of housekeeping is out of the way, let's get down to the real business at hand here, which is games number 1 and number 2 of the first round of the Stanley Cup Playoffs for our Washington Capitals. They are down 2-0, people. There's no nice way of saying it. But you know what I want to do here today for this episode, for this audio podcast, I want to focus more so on what the Capitals can do going forward, moving forward in this series against the New York Rangers, rather than focusing on what's already happened, as I am going to have post-game reaction videos up on my YouTube channel as well. And so that is where we will talk more about what has happened in the games that have already been played here in this series. So if you want to catch those post-game videos, they're not up there on the YouTube channel just yet, as I have not had a chance to edit them yet, but they will be up there shortly. Probably sometime after game 3 of the series at home, I will probably just upload the videos for games 1 through 3 together as kind of a batch. So the YouTube channel is under the same name. If you're not following it already, if you're not subscribed to it already, it is under the same name, Jenaya Talks Caps. And again, you know, if you enjoy the content, I always do appreciate it if you can take a moment to subscribe over there on YouTube as well, as it really does make all the difference in the world in terms of how many people YouTube seems to want to show your content to. It really seems to make a big difference in that way. So I really do appreciate it from the bottom of my heart if you can take a moment and subscribe. Like I said, if you enjoy the content. If you don't enjoy the content, obviously don't subscribe, right? But yeah, if you do enjoy it, click on that subscribe button for me. I really appreciate it. But yeah, for this episode of the audio podcast, okay, I thought that we would focus more on how the Caps can improve in the series going forward, in terms of, you know, adjustments they can make or things or people that they need to get going here if they want to have a chance at knocking off the President's Trophy winners. So let's run through 5 things that need to improve if the Caps are to make some noise in this series, starting with game number 3 on home ice. The first thing for me that needs to improve, definitely, is both the overall discipline, if you will, of the team, as well as the penalty kill when penalties do happen. And I should really preface this by noting that I am saying that the team needs to be more quote unquote disciplined. I'm saying that with a bit of a tongue-in-cheek tone, because honestly, for the most part, I really don't think the Caps have taken a lot of penalties in this series that were actually penalties in the NHL, or at least, certainly not penalties in the Stanley Cup playoffs, right? Where traditionally you pretty much have to decapitate someone in order to get whistled for a penalty. But that has not been the case here for the Capitals against the New York Rangers. That never seems to be the case when you're playing against the New York Rangers or against any Original Six team for that matter. And certainly it does not seem to be the case when you're playing against the New York Rangers at Madison Square Garden specifically. So the Caps are getting whistled for pretty much everything, every tiny infraction. And given that is the case here, they really do need to try to be a bit more careful, even more careful than they're already being, right? So it is unfortunate that is the case, but that is where we find ourselves. And, at this point, 2 games in, right, we have seen what the standard is for each side. And on the Caps side of things, the standard for being whistled, like I said, for being whistled for a penalty is pretty weak, right? So they need to be even more careful than they're already being unfortunately. And it does suck because that makes it extremely hard to play hard on defense, especially when you're worried about being whistled for even the tiniest of infractions. But it is what it is, right? And the Caps need to find a way. Like I said, 2 games in now, we know what the standard is now, right? We've seen what the standard is here for the Washington Capitals. They need to figure it out. They need to do a better job. It's as simple as that. And I know that it's not necessarily fair that that's the case, that they do seem to be getting whistled for everything, but they just need to figure it out. Like it's similar to 2018, right? And I'm not saying like in the way that we're going to go on to win the Stanley Cup, but I'm saying like against the Pittsburgh Penguins in the second round, every single time. What happens when you play the Pittsburgh Penguins in the playoffs? Every single time. You are getting whistled a ton for everything, for the tiniest little infraction. You need to figure it out if you want to win the series. It's as simple as that. No, it's not fair. It's not. But if you want to win the series, you need to figure it out. So it's the same thing here. The Caps figured it out in 2018 against the Pittsburgh Penguins. They were great on their penalty kill. They had to be in order to win that series. And they were, and they won the series. So it's the same thing here. The Caps need to figure this out. And then when they inevitably do go shorthanded, right? The penalty kill needs to be a whole lot better than it has been through 2 games. And the reason why the penalty kill needs to be a whole lot better is because at 5-on-5 in this series so far, the Caps are actually hanging right with the New York Rangers. Like you look at the analytics through 2 games, and at 5-on-5, some of the metrics slightly favor the Rangers, some of the metrics slightly favor the Caps. And so the Caps are right there. Like it's pretty even. I'm looking at it right now here. It is pretty dead even between the Caps and the Rangers at 5-on-5 in this series so far. So the Caps are right there in terms of their 5-on-5 play, but they need to find a way to shut down the Rangers' power play in order to have a chance. The Rangers are 2 for 8 on the power play in the series so far. That is a 25% efficiency rate, and the Caps probably have to get that lowered quite a bit if they want to have a realistic shot at coming back in this series now. So like I said, you just have to do it. Like the penalty kill at different times throughout the season, it was kind of up and down, but at different times throughout the season and at clutch times throughout the season, like down the stretch when we needed to win games, the penalty kill has shown that it can be really fucking good, right? And we need it to be really fucking good right now. So they have to figure this out. Either stay out of the box, like I said, somehow, if you can somehow do that with these referees calling these penalties against the Caps the way that they are. But it's unlikely that you're going to be able to completely stay out of the box. So if you can't stay out of the box, you have to figure out this penalty kill here. You have to figure out a way to stop them. They cannot be at a 25% efficiency rate if the Caps want to win this series, especially now, being down 2-0, right? So got to figure that out. That is thing number 1. Thing number 2 that I believe needs to improve in order for the Caps to have a chance at tying up the series at home this weekend is the play of netminder Charlie Lindgren. And before people start flying off the handle here, just so we're clear, I am in no way saying that Charlie Lindgren has been bad in this series. He has not been. I think he's let in maybe a goal or 2 that he would like to have back, certainly. And I also think that he would be the first person to tell you that. But he hasn't been bad by any means. It's just that the Caps need better from him if they're going to have a chance to win this series. He said it himself after practice the other day, actually. He said, I can't be letting in 4 goals a game. That's simply not sustainable if we want to win games in this series. So, this is the President's Trophy winners that they're up against. Let's not kid ourselves. Like, the Capitals are massive underdogs here. They were massive underdogs coming into this series before the puck had even dropped. Never mind now that they're down 2-0. So I don't even want to know what those odds look like right now. But they also at one point not too long ago had only 0.5% odds of making the playoffs, right? And now here we are making a playoff podcast episode. So I guess the odds don't really mean shit, do they? They can come back in this series, but it has to start in net. If you asked anyone coming into this series, what is the biggest thing that the Washington Capitals need to happen in order to pull off the massive upset here? Everyone would have said Charlie Lindgren needs to stand on his head, just as he did all throughout the regular season in order to get the Caps into the playoffs. So we know he is definitely capable of it, right? We've already seen it. And I think if you asked anyone, he is still the X factor here. He's the number one guy that the Caps need more from if they are going to make some noise in this series, if they're going to have a hope in hell of coming back from being down 2-0 now. I talked about the penalty kill. What's the easiest way to fix a penalty kill? What is the easiest way for a penalty kill to look good on the stat sheet? The goaltender stands on his head, right? If your goaltender is making saves, your penalty kill is not going to have any problems. Hakuna Matata. Okay. Thing number 3 that needs to improve if the Caps want to have a chance. And I truly hate saying this because we know that he is playing injured, but it is the production of Captain Alexander Ovechkin. And like I said, I know we all know that he is playing injured, and so I want to be very clear that I am not blaming him for his lack of production so far in this series, but rather that I am just stating a fact. And that fact is that this Caps team needs him to score a lot of goals if they are going to win. That's just a fact. It's how the team is built right now. They have a lot of young and inexperienced guys, and he is still, at this point in time, their main offensive weapon. And I know he's 38 years old, and so whether it is fair or not to be putting that type of expectation on him at this stage in his career is a whole other discussion for another time. But for right now, that's how this Capitals team is built. They are built to be able to compete when he is scoring a lot of goals and to have absolutely no chance when he is not. We know, he has had those cupping therapy marks reappear on his back, on his back of his neck rather, and his shoulders. And when I saw those there during warm-ups before Game 1 against the Rangers, I was honestly like, fuck me, man. Because he had those cupping therapy marks on him before Game 1 of the regular season and throughout the first half of the regular season. And we know how that went, right? He was not the same player. He was not Alex Ovechkin for the first half of this regular season. But then, the second half of the season, the cupping marks disappear, and suddenly he's Alex Ovechkin again. Suddenly he's shooting the puck again and scoring goals again. The first half of the season, it literally looked as if he was physically incapable of shooting the puck to where he's passing off to someone else on almost every single opportunity. And that's obviously not what you want. You don't want the greatest goal scorer of all time and the greatest shooter of all time passing off shots to anybody else. You want him to be the one shooting it whenever possible, because obviously there's a much greater chance that it goes in the net when it's Alex Ovechkin shooting it. But that's the thing, is it literally looked as if it was physically impossible for him to shoot the puck. He was physically impaired in some way from doing so, which makes a lot of sense when you look at where the cupping therapy marks were located on his body. But yeah, first half of the season, he can't shoot the puck, and so naturally his goal scoring was way down, right? But then second half of the season, like I said, the cupping therapy marks disappear, and all of a sudden he can shoot the puck again, and he's scoring a ton of goals again. Now, Game number 1 of the playoffs, and the cupping therapy marks have reappeared, and not surprisingly, what has been his biggest problem so far through 2 games of this series? It again looks like he is physically incapable of shooting the puck. 0 shots in game number 1, and I believe that is only the 4th time ever in a so far 19 years long NHL career for him that he has failed to get a shot on net in a playoff game, which is absolutely insane in and of itself, by the way. Only 4 times in 19 years. And the Capitals have been in the playoffs almost every single one of those 19 years. So that is a lot of opportunities to not get a shot on net in a playoff game. But nope, Ovechkin, he always finds a way. He always comes through. And then game number 2 of the series, he has just the 1 shot on net in that one as well. So 0 shots in game number 1, 1 shot in game number 2, just 1 shot on net through 2 games of this series so far. Very un-Alex Ovechkin-like, to say the least, right? But yeah, it's not that I want to put so much of the pressure on an injured 38-year-old to get things done offensively. I don't want to do that. But like I said, that's just kind of the reality of how the Caps are built right now, right? They are in this rebuilding stage, which frankly speaks to how incredibly impressive it is, rather, that they were even able to get into the playoffs in the first place, right? like, I think we need to remember that as well, as they were not supposed to be here. They are rebuilding this team right now. It's a very, very young team. They're not supposed to be here. So we do need to remember that as well, and keep our expectations in check a little bit as well, and just kind of enjoy the moment, right? But yeah, they were not supposed to be here, but now that they're here, right? Now that they made it against all odds, they're in the playoffs. So we want to try and look for ways that they can compete, right? That they can make this a series at least against the President's Trophy winning New York Rangers. And definitely if they want to have any hope of that, as I've mentioned, it starts with the penalty kill. It starts with Charlie Lindgren, and it starts with Alex Ovechkin, because this team doesn't seem to have a whole lot of offensive confidence when Ovechkin's not going. And, I'm sure that'll come with time and experience, right? As there is, like I said, a lot of very young players on this team. But for right now, even at age 38, this is where we are, right? Ovechkin is still the guy that they look to get the engine running for this team. And so injured or not, unfortunately, fair or not, unfortunately, he is going to have to find a way to get going offensively if the Caps want to have any hope of coming back and winning this series. That is just a fact, like I said. I don't think it's fair. I don't like saying it, but that's the way this team is built right now. It's the reality, and like I said, it's just a fact at this point. So he needs to get going. Okay, thing number 4. That needs improvement, which can definitely be helped if Ovechkin gets going, is that the Capitals in general need to start putting more pucks at Igor Shesterkin. They are just simply not shooting enough. Like, they need more volume. And actually, to be honest, at times when the Caps have shot the puck, the rare times that they have shot the puck, Shesterkin has looked a little shaky so far at times, to be honest. So definitely getting some more volume and testing him a little bit more would definitely be a good thing. Make him make some saves. Like, let's see what this guy has. Like, he hasn't had to do too much so far, which is not a recipe for success if you were the Washington Capitals. So I would like to see the Caps take a much more direct approach to their offense in game number 3 at home. And that means when you get a chance to shoot the puck, for God's sake, shoot it and crash the net for rebounds. Like, get back to basics here. Bang home some dirty goals. That is what is going to get them back into this series, is if they can take that approach and do it well. And finally, thing number 5 that I would like to see the Caps do a whole lot better in games 3 and 4 on home ice is to use their size to their advantage and get back to playing that physical brand of hockey that they played down the stretch and that got them into the playoffs, right? Let's get back to what we were doing that got us here, people. Because, that is one advantage that the Capitals definitely do have over the New York Rangers, is that they are bigger than them, they are stronger than them, and they are tougher than them. But they have to use that to their advantage. They have to actually use it, and they really haven't done a great job of making that an advantage for themselves so far. They need to get physical here. They need to turn this into a bit of a street fight, if you will, because we know that that is not a type of game that the New York Rangers are really comfortable playing, right? They need to start crashing the net offensively, certainly. We've already talked about that. That's a part of physicality. Like, I'm not just talking about, beating people's faces in here. Like, it's physicality all over the ice. They need to start crashing the net offensively. They need to start running guys through the glass on the forecheck and then using that to turn pucks over and create offense for themselves, right? All these things are connected. Like, you may have noticed, thing number 5 is definitely connected, definitely correlated to thing number 4 as well, right? Because if you're playing physical, if you're coming in hard on the forecheck, like I said, and forcing the opposition to make mistakes, then naturally that is going to set you up to be able to get more shots on net, because you are going to find yourself with the puck in scoring areas more frequently. And in fact, like, if we really look at it here, like I said, kind of a lot of these things are actually tied together, right? Like, if you take these 5 things that I've just talked about that I would like to see the Capitals improve upon in order to get back in the series, if you really break it down, a lot of these things are really tied together anyway. And so you can likely improve upon multiple things just by even doing one thing better, right? Like I just said, like, start by just playing with more physicality. Start there, right? More physicality, particularly on the forecheck, will lead to more open space, more open ice, and therefore more opportunities to create more offense. And then, what's going to happen when you're creating more offense in general, when you're creating more offensive opportunities, more open space on the ice? That is going to naturally create more room for Alex Ovechkin and for him to get that howitzer of a shot off and to start turning the red light on behind Igor Shesterkin, right? So that's 3 things right there that you can accomplish off of this list just by being physical, right? And then like we talked about, if Charlie Lindgren can raise his level to match what he was doing in the regular season, then that in all likelihood would go a long ways toward fixing the penalty kill, right? So problem solved there. And I know that's asking a lot of Chucky because he played phenomenal in the regular season. He really did. And he's played a ton of very high stress hockey down the stretch here. And he's likely exhausted at this point. It's understandable. So I know, again, it's like, just like I was talking about with Alex Ovechkin, I know it's not necessarily fair what I'm asking of Charlie Lindgren here, but we know that he can do it, right? That's the thing. Like, he has showed us all season long that he can do it. He owned these very same New York Rangers all throughout the regular season. They couldn't beat him, couldn't get a goal by him unless it was a fluky bounce. So we know he can do it. We know he can excel against this New York Rangers team. So, like I said, I know it's not necessarily fair to put that on him, to be asking that on him, to be, so good like he was in the regular season. He was so good. As I know he's probably exhausted right now from, I believe he played, 19 of the Capitals' final 22 games, I believe it was. And there was not an easy game in there. Like, they were all, it was a very high stress situation. They were all high stress games. We had to win every game. You're going out there every night knowing that you can't make even one mistake. So it's been very high stress for him, I'm sure. I'm sure he's both, mentally and physically exhausted. And so, like I said, I know it's not really fair necessarily what I'm asking of him here. But I just think that, just like I said with Alex Ovechkin, this is the reality. We need Alex Ovechkin to score, whether it's fair or not. We need Charlie Lindgren to be as good as he was during the regular season, whether it's fair or not, right? These are 2 things that, like I said, it's just a fact. It's what we need if we want to have a chance to win this series, especially right now being down 2-0. But yeah, I mean, really, like I said, if you really think about it, if you can just fix those 2 things, start with that. Like, start playing a heavier, more physical game, and Chucky raises his level in the crease to where we know it can be. If you just start with those 2 things, then the other 3 things are just going to fall into place, fall into line behind the first 2 things. So if I were the Caps in game number 3, I would start there. I would start with those 2 things. I would start with just playing more physical and hoping that Charlie Lindgren can come up with a gem of a performance as he did all throughout the regular season. All right, babes, that is going to be it for this one. I have bent your ear long enough here, but I did want to thank you all again so much for listening. I really, really, really appreciate it, like I said earlier. And hey, if you did enjoy the show here today, then please don't forget to take a moment and click on that subscribe button for me. That support, that the show has been getting lately has really been phenomenal. It really has. I don't even really have words. We've been getting so much support from so many people. And it warms my heart, really. It truly does. I started this show just for fun. It's getting a lot of traction now, and I'm really, really grateful for that. It's so much fun to do, and it's so great to know that people love listening to it, that we're building kind of a little bit of a community here, if you will, of people that just love Washington Capitals hockey. And truly, like, you all, I say this all the time, but you all are what make this show so much fun to do. I just love talking hockey with you all. And of course, we have got a big, big game coming up on Friday night as well. Game number 3 of the series, Capital One Arena. The atmosphere in that building is going to be lit. And it's pretty much as close as you can get to a must-win for the Caps, right? If they want to get back in the series, which we know that they do. So show up, show out, and show your support. And let's cheer on our boys in red, hopefully to a big-time victory that gets them back in the series. Until next time, babes, You take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Let's have some fun. Let's remember we weren't even really supposed to be here, so let's not take it too seriously. Just have fun with it. Just enjoy it. We're in the playoffs. We're watching playoff hockey again. It's great. Until next time, babes. And as always, let's go Caps.